Jess Jacobs, welcome to An Actor's Spares. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. It's such an interesting time in this industry right now. And watching your film, if you see
Yeah.
something, it's like, you're really taking control of your own process as an artist and kind
Mm,
of moving things along. And I have so much respect for what you're doing because I think there's a lot of and I'm not berating this, but there's a lot of people feeling sorry for themselves right now in this moment
mm.
because it's a really bleak, with consolidations and all these mergers. But to get out there and create and make things happen, I have so much
Mm.
respect. I'm so excited to get to talk to you today about how this all came together and how you wrote this project and hear how your journey came together.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, look, I mean, if you're at home feeling sorry for yourself, I fully understand. And like, go run a bath and like have a cup of tea. I have tea with me most of the time these days, just like a little comforting beverage to get through the hard times. And also remember, I don't know, I like the thing that I remind myself all the time is like the artists are the most essential members of society. Like us getting up and remembering that we have so much power and that we get have the opportunity to use our creativity to like imagine a world that's better, to imagine an industry that's better, to build an industry that's better. Like that's our superpower. And so feel sorry for yourself and then tomorrow get up and get started.
Yeah, totally. Fuck these tech oligarchs. We got to keep this thing
Fuck the
alive.
tech oligarch. Fuck the tech oligarchs. Fuck those guys.
Totally, man. But
Seriously.
as my audience knows, I always start at the beginning. Tell me, where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Diego, California, a very idyllic place that I had no idea was as amazing as it is. It's like normal when you're a kid in a place, you're like, of course the sun is shining and the flowers are blooming and like, get me the hell out of here, essentially.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
in San Diego? La Jolla or?
In La Jolla. Yes.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Why
Yeah.
aren't you living there? That's so much.
Dude, my husband is like, hey, whenever we go back and visit family, it's like, this is a nice place to raise kids, wouldn't it be? I'm like, Brian, my God, we met in New York, but we moved back to the beach, so we're living near the beach in LA these days. So I came home a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah,
got to keep it by the coastline. So tell me
I think
then,
so.
obviously, there is a big art scene there, but were
Mm,
your parents artists? Like, how did this whole thing happen for you?
absolutely not. No, my dad is an engineer and a businessman, and my successful one, and my mom is an optometrist by trade. And so, I grew up in a family that really celebrated the arts, from music to fine art to theater to, but certainly no professional artists in my family, and definitely nobody who works in the film industry. San Diego has like such a beautiful theater scene, and that's actually where I started working as a teenager. But no,
In La
it's
Jolla?
not in my blood. My first thing was a project of the Old Globe, and it was a two-hander. I was 15 years old. My drama teacher in high school knew the casting director, and so she sent a bunch of students from my high school to audition. And actually, it's a fun story. It was my first professional audition ever. I'd been doing like some community theater, like playing a knife in Beauty and the Beast, like nothing, major, but I loved it. I loved being on stage. I loved the community, but kind of aspect of it. And so I was sitting in the waiting room and talking to another girl from my high school, sort of saying, like, oh, I know the guy that they cast because they were auditioning the gals with this guy, Trevor, that they had already cast, who I actually knew from the community theater world. And he was 5'8", I'm 5'10". And I was like, there's no way, I'm too tall. Like, it's so annoying. I'm always too tall for stuff, blah, blah. And went in and did my audition, and I let my mom, I didn't drive at the time, my mom had to come and pick me up, so my mom picked me up and we went over to like Chipotle or something to get dinner. And my phone rang, my cell phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was the director. And I stepped outside, and he said to me, I heard from my associate that you're self-conscious about your height, that you were talking about it in the waiting room. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, happens to me a lot that, people think I'm too tall or whatever. And he was like, okay, well, I'm going to tell you that that's exactly the reason why we're casting you. And I was
Wow.
like, ah. And it was just such this like early gift that that he gave me to remember that like the things that we think make us different or weird or like stand out, that those are our assets. He like that was the reason why I was getting this job, and that was my first professional gig.
And was this a like developmental piece for Broadway or just something local for the community?
It was something local for the community, but it's funny because the playwright was this guy from you know, this like young guy from LA, and super talented, and he would, you know, come down to San Diego with the director, and we would do rehearsals at USD at the college there. And a couple of years, I guess, what was it, like 2 years ago, I was walking around and I saw the Challengers posters everywhere, and I was like, Justin Kuritzky's, that's such a familiar name, and it was
No
Justin.
way.
Hmm. He
Wow.
was the playwright. Yeah.
Wow, you got him early. You gotta call him up tomorrow and get him the next.
I know, exactly, exactly.
Wh-
But look, it's like, you know, these young people like telling, and he was really telling a story. I don't think it was like, you know, autobiographical or anything, but, you know, there were some similar themes to what he continues to write about. And, you know, same, like these like sort of deeply human kind of things that I'm really drawn to these days. So really
Was
informs.
that the big catalyst for you where you felt like the bug bit you entirely?
It was the first, I mean, look, I received in the mail a check with my name on it for doing this thing that I loved with my entire soul. And I had friends that were like, you know, making sandwiches at Subway or scooping ice cream at Baskin Robbins. And I realized that I could make money and I could have a life like doing this. It just never would have occurred to me, I don't think, that I could be a professional artist. Because again, it wasn't in my family. It was like, oh, this is a hobby. It's something you love to do on the side. But yeah, that was definitely the time. It was that and my dad, my sweet dad, who I'm so close with, um, coming to see the play and being like, I knew it was you, but it wasn't you. And I was like, this is like the biggest compliment you can give an actor. At least for me at that time, I was like, oh my God, I think I can really do this. So yeah, that was kind
Amazing.
of the beginning of it all.
And at that point, you know, you're kind of getting close to the end of high school. Like,
Yeah.
did you see college as something that was on your horizon for you?
Yeah. So I had always wanted to live in New York. It was like the place that my soul felt at home. My grandmother grew up in Washington Heights, and we had spent, you know, a lot of time going there when we were younger. And I loved the city, and so I really wanted to go there. I applied to a bunch of conservatory programs. I ended up getting accepted to a number of them, but decided to go to NYU because I
That's where
wanted
I
to
went.
be in the city. Yay! Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
What conservatory programs did you apply for?
So, gosh, it's like so long ago now. I applied to Carnegie Mellon. I applied to Emerson. I applied to I auditioned for Juilliard.
How did that one
Uh,
go?
Juilliard, I got a call back, which was so delightful. And then gosh, it was like I love Shakespeare so much. My high school had a really good Shakespeare program, and I picked this like totally obscure monologue from like I don't even remember which play right now. Like one that's just like I've never seen a production of it. It was just like such a strange choice, and I loved it. It was like such a fun, you know, piece to do. I think all the other like 17-year-olds were doing Juliet, and I was doing like some queen from some like very obscure Shakespeare play. But it was great. And I ran into like somebody that I knew there, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is New York. Like this is the thing. And you know, I look, going to Juilliard would have been amazing. I would be lying if I said, you know, but I was so glad to go to NYU and to be able to study other things and to really like fill my cup with all sorts of subjects. I actually ended up leaving Tisch after a year to study art history because I just felt so nourished by like a broader education, and being in New York City and being able to go to the theater and to see, you know, the
Yeah.
Broadway shows and the like off Broadway, like the weird experimental stuff, and like, you know, the big films in like at like Lincoln Center and going to the Met, like that really felt like the arts education that I was craving.
So you went in for the BFA acting program
Yeah,
for a
I
year.
did a year at Stella Adler, which
I
was
was
amazing.
Strasberg.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved my time there. They were wonderful teachers. It just, first of all, like you couldn't work professionally while you were in school, which was
Yeah.
hard for me. I wanted to be able to go out and start, cutting my teeth, or continue, I guess. Um, and and like I said, like I really wanted to be able to take classes in like liberal arts subjects and read books and learn about these other things, which there's some space for that. But the acting program is it's really demanding. So it
Yeah,
was
it's
nice.
50. So you switched to Steinhardt then, or?
I switched to College of Arts and Sciences, like just kind of the regular liberal arts
Oh,
college, I
okay,
believe.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow. But
Yeah.
overall, you had a good experience there. Were you still acting when you left the acting program?
I was, yeah. So I signed with my first agent my sophomore year of college and got to start auditioning and doing some regional theater and some small stuff in New York and that sort of thing. So that was
Do you
really kind
remember
of,
who it was?
oh, of course, Nancy Carson of Carson Adler Agency. Yeah, she
Carson
was.
Adler. Yeah, of
Mhm.
course.
Yep, that was
Wow.
my first agent, and Nancy was just so good with young people. Like, again, like I hadn't been doing any film and TV stuff at that point. It had really all been theater. And so, she really helped me ground myself in what on-camera auditions would look like and what on camera, what being on set would feel like. I was 19, I guess, at the time when I signed, 18 or 19 when I signed with her.
Did she
So
send you what to Bob Krakow or Ted Slabursky or
Bob Krakow. Gosh, it's like all these names I haven't thought of in so long. Yeah, I did that, and I had a coach who still to this day I work with named Walker Clark, and Walker's actually who brought me in to Nancy. He had a number of other actors that he worked with who were with her, and so he's the best,
amazing?
like the best.
So did you finish NYU then?
I did. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in art history. I use it almost exclusively when I go to cities around the world and check out their museums and walk my friends around. And I'm like, this, Matisse painting and how he was in conversation with, Renoir and this time and this, So it's in my bones and in my blood. But gosh, I mean, I don't really use it for anything else, which
So
is
I
odd.
mean, I minor in art and public policy, and I think it's
Mm,
always a good yeah.
amazing.
So then talk to me. What was your kind of like? Were you still working with them? Did you want to stay in New York and kind of grind it out?
So I had done a couple of like small theater things and my first film job on a very small indie in LA, and I got introduced to an agent at ICM, and I went in for a meeting. I think I was like it's like everything's such a blur now, but I think I was in LA to take a couple of meetings or something. And I just went and sat in with him, and he thinking like I'd get some advice, I'd get on his radar, in the next couple of years. And he and I had such a great meeting. And he decided to hip pocket me. And then he set me up with somebody from Untitled, and so the two of them were my team for like, it was really just like a couple of months. And I was back in New York at school auditioning a ton. And basically they said to me, we really think you should come out to LA. This is how we're really going to be able to get, your career kickstarted. And I decided that I was going to stay in New York.
Wow.
Um, first of all, I think, it was important to my parents who were very supportive of me. But education was important to them. And so, I decided like, look, I think I was a junior at the time. I was like, junior or senior. I was like, let me finish school. I'll come out to LA after that. Let's sort of see what happens. Then this is important to me. And so I stayed in New York. I finished my degree and I came out to LA right after. And that was when I did my first leading role in a movie. And so ICM was like sort of fully on board. They were like, we love you. We'd like to rep you. Untitled, they had sort of said, if you can't come out now, reach out to us whenever you're here, but can't. They set me up with another, ICM set me up with another manager at Anonymous and had this kind of great team and this great kind of setup here in LA. And I just like it wasn't, look, I mean, maybe some actors love auditioning. It was really hard for me to be in Los Angeles, what felt like just a cattle call, like one audition after another. And like you're in a room and everybody kind of looks like you. And uh, it's so, I guess what I'll say is like, I started to develop this funny dichotomy where I felt that I was so replaceable and so kind of insignificant and simultaneously that I was like the entire industry revolves around the talent on screen. And so
Yeah,
it's this funny thing where you're like you're both so unimportant and also so essential. And I was trying to square those things as a 21 or 22-year-old or whatever I was at the time. And I just finished, this first movie like with like where I had like a real sort of meaty substantial role and just like couldn't make dollars and cents of it. Like I couldn't wrap my arms around like what it was to be an artist when being an artist meant like kind of putting on an outfit and showing up to a room full. I don't know. It didn't feel like what I wanted my creative life to feel like.
totally. You wanted a
Yeah.
more active role and less being this passive vehicle for someone to give you and say it's your turn.
Yeah, and I wanted community. I
Mm,
wanted people. I felt this feeling in LA at that time and at that age and at that stage in my career that was so like combative and so comparative and so like what's the right term? Like there's a word for it. I can't remember. Whatever. Just like there's only room for one of us kind of thing.
yeah,
Um, And so I loved my agent. I ended up leaving my manager and moving back to New York. And ICM set me up with an amazing team in the New York office, and I signed with this, boutique management company in New York and was like, all right, I'm back. I'm here. Like I loved New York. This is where I felt at home. It's where I had friends from being in school there and was like, okay, this is better. This is, what I really want to be doing. Want to be here with my people. And and then it was kind of the same thing. Like you keep learning the lesson until you really learn it. So again, it was like I'm in all the right rooms, I'm up for the big network shows, I'm doing this thing. It was my manager at the time was absolutely amazing. I mean, she has like a small client list of like stars. She doesn't really take on developmental clients. At that time, I was still developmental and she really fought for me so hard. And I was like, I should be so happy to be in these rooms, to have these opportunities. But I think what I felt was like it almost felt like I should be so grateful.
yeah.
Again, it just was this feeling of like I should be thanking everybody around me for the chance to get to do this thing. And gratitude's wonderful. It's really important. Like, don't get me wrong, but there was something that just felt undermining of my creative contribution. And, to sit in these rooms and pour your heart out, uh, it just it just didn't feel right. And there was one audition in particular, and I'll be discreet about it, but there was one audition in particular that I got quite far for a network show for a series regular role, playing an adulterous chief of staff whose brain had been eaten out by an alien. And the audition scene was a sex scene. And, I was 25 and young and hot and all the things, and like went in and did this scene for like a male casting director who was like, I want it sexier. And he did the thing. And I just like, and, went through the casting process and met the producers and the whole thing. And then like didn't ultimately get it. They gave it to my hair was red at the time. They gave it to another redhead. And I was so devastated. Like, I remember just like crumbling, like so sad, crying. And a little bit of a light bulb went off in my head that was like, this is what you're crying about? Like, you're so, no, 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 no. I want to tell my own stories. I want to have, I, I want to stamp on the world. I want to put a stamp on the world. I want to say something with my creativity. I don't just want to be reacting to things that other people have made. And at that time it was like 2016ish. Like 2015, 2016, like this sort of pigeonhole that like young women got put in at the time. I auditioned for like a scientist and I was like, loved the role. And they told my manager that I was too pretty to play a scientist. I was like, what does it mean? And this is all like
Yeah,
so such cliched stuff. Like it's so classic. It's like the pretty but smart breakdowns that like women have been complaining about forever. But at that like young age, I you either commit to it and you then start to believe it that you can't be these two things at the same time, or you reject it and then have to start to look to building your own work and your own thing in which you get to be complicated and dualistic and both beautiful and intelligent and both like vulnerable and strong, in which you get to tell your own story, something that actually looks like the women around,
totally.
something that looks like the women around me.
And was like, I don't know if you knew her at the time, but like, was Britt Marling someone that was on your radar?
Brett Marling is like absolutely one of my girl crushes. And yeah, the OA, like her just being able to build this show that was so fucking weird. The OA is so weird and it's so cool and beautiful and like the dance and yes, absolutely. She was on my radar. Greta was on my radar. I think now there are so many artists and actors who have really, I think, taken the mantle. But yeah, that early on in that era, absolutely.
So then at that point, was there kind of a conversation with your team where it was like, this isn't working for me. I kind of want a more active, you know, approach to this, that I want to take the reins and the power back. And I know with some of those kind of like caliber of reps, they want you booking the series regulars because they need
Hmm.
that commission to justify having the
Yeah,
person who isn't bringing in that 100,000 a year,
yeah,
So were they supportive, or was that a tough conversation to have?
yeah. It was, I guess, more a tough conversation to have. I think in large part because I knew that I was asking for something exactly to your point. Like I was asking for something that required a bit of sacrifice on their part. And my manager, who again was like such a powerhouse, I went to her and just said, like, look, I want to learn how to produce. I want to learn how to make stuff. And, she wonderfully set me up on a bunch of meetings with a handful of different producers that she knew. And I got to
In New
start to
York?
learn in New York, yeah, to shadow them and start to learn what script development looked like and again just like a little bit of that behind the scenes stuff. However, she also advised me like keep those things separate for now, like let's get you on your big TV show and then learn how to produce over here, and then once you've established that, like we can put them together. And I remember getting off the phone with her and being like, I get it, I know why she's saying that, but I just hopped in. I think I actually just hopped in a taxi. I was like, I can't even bear the subway. I hopped in a taxi. I cried all the way up to Washington Heights, where I like showed up at my best friend's doorstep and just like laid on her bed and cried and was like, I can't, like, I want to act. This is what I want to do. And I want to do it in a way that honors the story, kind of stories that I want to tell. And like, the only reason I want to produce is and learn how to produce is so I can I can embody these dynamic roles. Like I don't want to wait. I was so impatient. And again, this is like what our 20s are for, I think, is like finding our way and our voice. And I was like so upset about it. And ultimately was like, I don't want to do things that way. And I hadn't booked my big TV show at that time. And so that manager and I sat down for a coffee and decided that it was time to part ways. Um, and my New York team, bless them, like my New York ICM team, um, they were so supportive and so wonderful. And we're like, no, we can see that you're unhappy. Like you're not gonna book the thing if you don't want to be doing it. Like, why don't you, yeah, go build something. Go fight for the thing you want. Like we're here. We'll send you out for stuff that we know you'd like, which honestly meant that I was auditioning like maybe 10 times a year. Like it wasn't a ton of stuff because I was being very picky. Um, and uh and they ostens like they were okay with it. I didn't ask too much of them. Like, I think it was an arrangement that really worked. And so yeah, I started to write what eventually became Choices, which is the short film that I made in 2021. And um, I
You started
started
writing
to
this
produce.
pre-pandemic?
Yeah, pre-pandemic. So I started writing it in like probably 2017 or 2018. And I was like learning how to produce, again, I've been doing the script development, I've been reading scripts my whole career. I ended up kind of starting this very small, like little production company outfit. Uh, that it was intended to be kind of this opportunity again to like really put any of like my weight and my creativity behind stories that would also be a vehicle for the material that I was making and writing and creating. It turns out that like running a company, even in a small way, like is a very consuming uh, job.
Yeah.
Producing is a very consuming job. Producers are so underappreciated in our industry, especially independent producers. That's a whole conversation for another time, but like, my God. And so I was doing that work then for a couple of years. Um, Worked with Annie Silverstein and Monique Walton and Heather Wright. He's like, Ryan Zacharias on this amazing film called Bull, which we took to Cannes,
Wow.
and this fabulous kind of small indie rom-com sci-fi hybrid called Long Weekend, and got to make this fun show with Topic, which is now the platform's now defunct, but at the time they were really investing in like some genre stories, so we went and shot down in New Orleans this really fun piece. So I really learned how the sausage gets made, like developed from soup to nuts on that Topic piece, and kind of came on board really for like the set and the sales piece for the other film. Like, there was a lot of learning that I spent time doing.
Not acting in every one of those, or you were? So
I
you
was
were
not.
fully, it was like, I have to understand the production process,
Yeah.
every in front, behind, you know what I
Yep.
mean? And at that point, were you like, a lot of these sounds like films, but were you ever like doing writer's assistants or writer's room type things to kind of like see the breaking of, or you just learned it by pure
I,
brute force?
I learned it by brute force, and I didn't have lit representation, and actually like wasn't really looking to writing as something that I thought I wanted to do with my life. I enjoyed it, but I was like, I don't think that's like where kind of my future career is going. That has since shifted. And we'll get there. It's a little spoiler alert. But at the time, and so I didn't have lit representation. I mean, ICM had an amazing books department, and so I was reading manuscripts to like, basically like potentially option or partner with a writer to develop that then I could be it, or whatever. So um there were opportunities like that, but I was really cutting my teeth in basically independent film production. That was
Amazing.
where I was spending my time. Yeah.
And is at this point, are we getting to the pandemic, or this is during the pandemic?
So this is pre-pandemic still. So then COVID hits, and
Yeah.
this little company had our first three projects were all slated to come out in March, April, and June of that year. And so obviously March comes, South by Southwest was canceled. Bull had gone to Cannes the year before, was going to be at South by that year, and that was canceled. Our TV show that was that we had shot with Topic was supposed to come out in April. That all, we were going to go down to New Orleans and do this big thing with the NOLA Film Society, and that all got squashed. And then this, other kind of sci-fi rom-com was supposed to go out into theaters, and actually ultimately did go to theaters, but in the middle of COVID. So it was like a very different environment. And it was two things happened at once. One of them was that I was like, my heart broke, um, not to get to be able to like fully realize so much of the work that we had done over so long. And also that I realized that I had been holding my breath for the moment where the films got to meet the audiences, and I got to kind of see that, but that I didn't love the process, like that the producing process didn't light me up. that I was
Mm.
waiting for this like shoe to drop, for this thing to finally make all of that hard work worth it. Producers that I know who are good at what they do, like love that work. They
Yeah.
just love it so much, and it's why they do it with so little thanks, and frankly, especially these days, like so little money, all of which is completely wrong. But I, in that moment, realized like, oh, this is not what I love to do. I love the creative work. And If You See Something was in kind of the sphere at that time, and I had started to write, um, to do passes on the script because we had lost the writer. So, we can go back to kind of the whole If You See Something journey, which is really coincides with a lot of um, this kind
Quickly
of
tell
arc.
me, because I remember in the pandemic, and maybe it was before, or maybe I think it was like a year in, like ICM got sold to CAA then. Did you lose that? Because I know there was kind of a bloodbath for,
Yeah.
CAA was kind of like, well, we're going to take a third of your clients.
Yes. So my key like point agent called me, said, look, the news wasn't public yet, I don't believe, but he called me and said, look, this thing is happening. We will take you to CAA if you want to go to CAA. I don't think it's the right place for you. I think that you'll get lost. I don't think that this is kind of the right environment. But we can have a conversation if it's something that you want to do. And I'm sure that this will come back to bite me in the ass. And Dakota, you can decide if later this is something that shouldn't be on the podcast. Um, but the like really like WME and CAA like really scare me.
Get
I'm
lost. It's a very reasonable. It's
you,
not. It's nothing again. It's just
yeah,
a very real thing. I've had so many actors
yes,
on here that like went there and was like, "It was the worst thing in the world for me."
yes,
Not because of
yeah.
them, because I just was like, I'm a nobody.
I well, and also like the way in which agencies work, which again, I know so much more about from the producing world and packaging projects, is like they are their calculi are so different than the calculi of artists, at least in the independent space. Like
Yeah.
I have found that when I'm like, here are my priorities, here are the things that matter to me, that they're typically at odds with the goals, at least of the like really big agencies. And so it also was like, it felt like it was going to be an uphill battle for me, even to do the things that I did want to do. Like, look, they have obviously huge packaging departments, and you get access to great talent and all of that. But it just felt at that point like I've been doing so much of this by bootstrapping and by sheer will, and I'd rather fight that fight than fight the CAA fight, is like ultimately what I decided. And so yeah, it was a really sad parting. I mean, very amicable in terms of like so much mutual respect and so much mutual care, but very sad because again, I had this team that had a lot of like weight behind them, who were really willing to let me be the kind of artist that I wanted to be. They weren't trying to sort of pigeonhole me into doing something that didn't feel right for me. And that's really, I think it's really rare in this industry. And I haven't signed with an agent. I have an amazing manager, but I haven't signed with an agent since, because I'm really like, I just have decided that I'm not willing to compromise.
Yeah. No, and nor should you in a business that's kind of like
So
that. Those agencies aren't really built for a business that exists anymore. So
exactly.
wh-
It's really well said.
when when that happened at this point, then did that kind of like, at that point for you, did it feel like all of a sudden all these other kind of things that you could rely upon, you had to kind of like take it all into your hands? And how did you first not get overwhelmed? And B, did this
Hmm.
writing thing really start to kind of be like, okay, this is what I have to do? And at
Yeah,
that same time, sorry, this is a long question. Did
I
that
love it.
also open up the idea of like, I need to also be writing for myself to get back to
Hmm.
performing? Sorry, that was a really long bunch of
It's not a
questions.
long question. No, no,
Yeah.
it's totally the right question, and it's actually never been framed to me that way. So I really appreciate it. I think what I felt, it was my first time since being, yeah, 18 or 19 that I didn't have a rep, right? I had been through this whole cycle with like big companies, small companies, like I had a lot of team members over, I guess, God, I was like 28 maybe when that happened. So like over 10 years of my career. And all of a sudden I was like, all right, I'm a free agent. And again, like there was a part of me, I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't a part of me that was like a little terrified. Like I was like, okay, cool. So nobody's submitting me. I have never been on this, like I have to self-submit for stuff and I don't really know how to do that. And, I had some good casting relationships. So I sort of would reach out to them like, I'm flying solo now. So if anything comes in that I'm right for, like you can reach out to me directly. And sort of that went that way. But I think I also, I guess at that point, I really was committed to building a career in this
Mhm.
industry. I had been doing it long enough and had tasted some sweetness enough times that it felt worth really like going sort of full bore into. And so it was around that same time that I closed the production, the sort of small production outfit that I had been co-running, and sort of decided to move away from that and really to dive into the creative work. And that meant reading scripts from other writers that I knew that might, come my way, that I knew I could now produce and help kind of package and put together and get made because I knew how to do that. And also that I, yeah, started to really commit to writing some of my own material. And so, yeah, so choices, which is this thing that I've been like really slowly working on, like here and there and whatever. And, decided, okay, I'm going to send it to a couple of friends and they're going to, they'll give me notes and we'll see. And one of them was a director friend. And she was like, look, are you going to direct this? And I said, no. And she was like, I'd love to throw my hat in the ring. I think it's a really good script. And so anyway, we ended up making it, in 21 and taking it on the festival circuit. And, uh, it was one of these experiences on that set where it was like I had written this and I was in it, and this like a fabulous, director friend and an amazing producing team, an amazing creative team. And I was like, oh hell yeah, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Is this
I
where
had
you made the
agency.
with Doug Lyman? Was this the
So Doug So Doug came in for if you see something sort of separately. So, all of these things, like, look, it's everything is like has its own timeline. So like if I talk chronologically, you're gonna get lost in the sauce
yeah.
because it's like so many kind of crazy interweaving things and like this happened, which allowed this to happen, but that actually informed this thing over here, it's always like holding kind of what like a storm in a bottle or whatever people say, lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so if you see something had come across my desk in 2016, and it was a script. And it had been written by Avram Ludwig. Odeid Rashid was attached to direct. And I read the script and I absolutely fell in love with Katie, the character. I had actually been sent the script for a different character in the piece. And when I read it, I was like, I don't want to, this is so uncouth. This is so like not the thing that actors do. But I was like, it's you guys wrote me. Like Katie has so many similarities to me and very different now at the end of the development, but like kind of where she was and who she was in that early draft. She was a gallerist. I had this whole art history degree and kind of this like I thought maybe if acting didn't work out, I would go into curatorial work. Like the relationships that she had with her parents really mirrored my relationships, the way in which people talked about her, ways that I had heard myself being talked about, the way that she was alone with her partner felt really simple. Like there was just so much about what they had written and they had built. And by the way, as two middle-aged men writing, a woman in her late 20s, I was like, this is kind of amazing that you guys have captured something that feels so right to me because so much of the other stuff, all the Netflix stuff and whatever, written by men to be directed by men that had nothing to do with womanhood, like even when she was the titular character or whatever. So I was so excited to read this script. And I reached out and was like, I'd like to have them over for dinner. I want to invite the writer and director over. I want to sit down with them. I want to cook them dinner. And I basically want to pitch myself for Katie. And if they don't agree, I will drop it. You'll never hear about it from me again. And I will decide whether this other role feels like something that I want to take on. But let's see how this goes. And so they showed up to my apartment in New York City and we sat down for dinner. And by the end of the night, like I'm sure I had like mascara down my face, like O'Day telling all of these stories about Baghdad and surviving wars and fighting to make art there in the midst of like what to me were just totally unimaginably dangerous circumstances. And the story of how he and Avram met, which was that Av was there with Doug Lyman shooting Fair Game, the Naomi Watts Sean Penn movie, and O'Day helped, was helping them on the ground there. And then when O'Day came to New York to screen his first two films, Underexposure and Quarantina, at MoMA, he met this American woman. He fell in love with her. He decided to stay and seek political asylum. He had lost so many friends in the war there. It didn't feel like a safe place for him. And this New York felt like home, and it's where he wanted to build his life. And we're like sitting around my kitchen table, and he's telling me these stories. And I'm like laughing and crying and like so moved and just so inspired and so enamored. And I was like, I want to work on this movie. I want to work with this team. Like, this is what I want to be doing. This feels like what I've been waiting for in some way. And so we decided to dive in and do this together, and like blessings be to them, because like I wasn't a mega star. And at that point, like Katie was the lead, like more so than Ali, which shifted, I think, as we developed the script. But at that point, like you know, she was the
Anchor.
center of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So for them to be willing to do that because they saw something in me that I would be able to bring to this story, that was something that they wanted, and O'Day, I think specifically, like it really was very inspiring, and really, again, I don't know why I show up every day to do this crazy thing. So that was the beginning. And then, this, as the story goes, like Avram gave me this, we were developing the script and giving notes and figuring out what was working and what wasn't working. And, decided at some point that Ali should not disappear for the majority of the movie. That the audience should be tracking both of these characters as they're dealing with this crisis, and all this stuff. And so, it was 2018 now. So we've been working on it for about 2 years. And Avram called me, and I'll literally never forget it. I was standing on my roof I moved to Brooklyn at that point. I was standing on my roof, uh, and got a call from him, and he said, I have bad news. And I'm assuming it's like something about the movie. We got rejected from something, or somebody passed, or whatever. And instead he said, I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Jesus.
And it was exactly like I like exhaled. I was like, okay, what's the plan? And he was like, I'm gonna start treatment at this hospital. And this whole thing. It's like, okay, well, we'll put the project down, we'll get you better. And TLDR, he didn't get better. And in March of 2019, we lost him, and just
So sorry.
completely devastating. And he was really like O'Day's best friend. He's Doug's best friend. Like, he was a member of the Actors Studio. Like, he was such a stalwart in the indie film community in New York, and such a loss for us and for everybody who loved him, obviously. So we put the project down for a little bit, and then we started talking to some other writers who might be able to to pick it up and to do some work on it, to continue the development. And somebody even like did a pass of it, and we were like, it's good, but something's missing. And I had just wrapped a movie in LA, like the end of the summer of 2019. And I was like, look, O'Day, I'm going on a trip for 2 weeks. Like, let me take the script. I've been doing this with you for so long, and with Av. Like, let me just take a pass. Let's see what happens. And so I went on this trip with my now husband. It was our first international trip together, and bless him, because we were like doing a road trip through Sicily, and I was just like typing on my computer the entire time, and rewrote the script, and or whatever, did a pass of it. And then got back to the States and emailed it to O'Day and was like, all right, well, let's see what happens. And he called me the next day, and he's like, I love it. Let's go. So then he and I dug in again, like really mined like all of the emotional truth that we could from all of the characters, really centered the relationship, decided that that was going to be the thing that like really drove the story. And I mean, basically the rest is history. In 2021, we attached producers, raised our financing, shot in 2022, post in 2023, premiered in 2024 at festivals, and then just
Now
our
rolling out to the
theatrical
world in
release.
2025.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's such an amazing story. How does it feel? And like, talk to me about, you kind of mentioned, putting yourself in that role, tricky time for financing for indies altogether. But,
Yeah.
now, like, the news every day is like, even, you know, not that I want to name her name, but a big movie star last weekend, like, indie film tanked. Like, was
Yeah.
that just carrying the boulder up the hill? Was that a really hard time to get it financed, for in a really tricky kind of streaming first IP first climate,
Yeah.
for all the
I mean, like, yes. Basically, the short answer is yes.
yeah.
Period. The end. The long answer is, we had a kind of concept, and we had a script that we got a budget done for that put us at about 3 million. And, we were like, okay, great. That's the goal. We're looking for $3 million to make this movie. And slowly we were like, okay, well, could we do it for two and a half? Could we do it for two? Could we do it for one and a half? Could we do it for one? Could we do it for half? And sort of just like pulled back and pulled back and pulled back and pulled back and we killed my mom off, Katie's mom off, and we consolidated a couple of locations, and O'Day reconfigured how he was imagining shooting it. And so the production budget for the film ended up being $500,000, $500,000.
Wow, amazing. On the East
Yeah,
Coast.
on the East Coast. So we shot 20 days in New York. We shot 1 day of pickups in New York, and then we shot 3 second unit days in Jordan,
Wow.
all in 2022. And it was cobbled together. And look, why did post take a year and a half? Because it was like cobbling money together. Like, okay, we have enough money to get the editor going. Like, let's edit. Okay, we have
Yeah.
enough money to get the sound team on. And it was like a sound team that I had worked with before, and they're so amazing. They're called This Is Sound Design. Everybody should work with them. Nathan Royal is a total genius and just like a wonderful guy. And so they've got a studio in Burbank. They totally worked with us in our budget, like way below what they should be paid. And did an amazing job. I mean, part of hearing it in theaters, part of going to this movie in theaters, and why everybody who can should see it in a theater is because the immersive sound design, and the music, that uh, again, spoiler alert, my husband is a musician as well, and he is our composer. So he also did it for approximately $1. And his music is amazing. And Nathan, the mix between Brian's music and Nathan's sound design, it's just such an immersive experience. And so again, like we made something with what we had in front of us. And so is it a perfect movie? Like, I've seen like maybe two movies that are almost perfect in my life. So no. Does it say what we want it to say? Absolutely. Are we like so profoundly proud of it? Yes. Do I ever want to do it like that again? Not particularly. I
Yeah.
will, but it's hard. It's really hard.
But you did it, and that's amazing. And now it is out in
Oh,
the world, and that I'm so proud of
yeah.
you. And I
Thank
mean,
you.
what is interesting to you now? What do you want to do, with like everything, all the lessons that you've learned, and like where the industry is kind of changing in this creator
Yeah.
economy? Like, what is
Yeah.
interesting to you?
So I've got a couple of independent film scripts that I'm working on. One of them, they're both actually based on, one is based on a book, a memoir, and one is I'm closing a deal to adapt a documentary. I can't say too much about that one at the moment, but um, they're both, human-centered stories dealing with kind of taboo subjects, kind of breaking, like I like to like dig into the shadows a little bit and like pull to the light stuff that I don't know, like polite society doesn't like to talk about. I just think that that's the stuff that's interesting. I like to kind of walk these fine lines between like dangerous and dirty, and like uh progressive and sort of human, so I've
Like
got
like
these
Sean
two.
Baker, Gaspar Noé, kind of, or
Yeah, yeah, those are interesting. Yeah, I haven't kind of aligned myself with their work in the past, but yeah, I think that's really nice. I'm also thinking, like, frankly, like Oscar for hottie, like
okay, okay,
Iranian cinema, like
got it.
Catherine Breillat, French cinema, like Agnes Varda. Like, where is this kind of line between reality and like something that feels a little exposing, and like a little like something you shouldn't look at, or shouldn't get to see. And by the way, it can be funny, can be dark, can be I'm very genre agnostic. So like the piece that I'm working on that's based on a memoir is quite funny, even though it deals with trauma and sexuality and pleasure and these things. Um, but so the way in which I'm thinking about, so I've written that, and I my intention is to direct it. So through the course of If You See Something, getting to work so closely with Audet taught me so much about filmmaking. And so I have a little short that I'll direct at the top of next year. I'm just like funding with, some friends' dollars and that sort of thing to like test the waters. Do I like to direct? Is this something that I want to do? And if it is, to then kind of run with it with these upcoming projects. And I'll act in a role here or there or whatever, but acting is such a sort of consuming and immersive process that if I'm directing, I'm still figuring it out, still figuring out whether I want to do the sort of triple threat thing or
Yeah.
if I can
But
just kind of play whatever role feels right for the
amazing.
moment.
Is that something that's happening in 26 when you're going to take the director reins?
Yes, that's the plan. That's the plan.
Wow. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for you. And that
Thank you.
it's, I mean, you've done so much and this was such an amazing chat. I mean, talk to me for everyone listening right now.
Mm,
It's a really weird time. We talked about that at the
yeah.
beginning in the business. And for those that kind of like, it kind of seems like, the old way of like kind of trying to wait your turn to get the right agent, to get the right audition, to get the right part, to then like be able to like have leverage like that world is evaporated. And what you're doing
Yeah.
is exactly what you need to be doing. And for the people out there listening right now, fighting the fight, any words of
Mm,
wisdom you might have if it were you starting now,
mm,
things you wish you
mm.
knew.
Gosh. Um, the my soapbox is that the artists are the people that make this industry go around. And so much of this industry is built to disenfranchise creative people, to try and replicate old things that have been done, old ways, to try and milk as much money and power from them as humanly possible. And that the magicians in this industry are the creatives. It again, I really could like get up on the soapbox. It infuriates me to no end that I look back at my 22-year-old self and feel like, and that she felt like she was replaceable because she is completely singular and completely irreplaceable. A different actress in the role creates a different film. A different author of a different screenplay creates a different film. Like we are bringing ourselves to our art. It is vulnerable work. It is noble work. It is essential work. It is the work that makes us human. So again, like feel sorry for yourself, take your bath and get up tomorrow and make something. Work with people that you love. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Like that, it's all that we have. The old guard, it doesn't work anymore. So it doesn't feel risky to try something new. It's equally risky to try and do it the old way. So we might as well be using our creativity and our imagination to try and build something better that works better for artists and works better for audiences too, because audiences want original content. Like there are literally studies that show this. So this IP, this like, bless Vin Diesel, but like the Fast and Furious 17, like that's a product. That's a commodity. Like
Yeah.
what we're making is art. And so that means that we get to try new things and actually maybe that it's our responsibility to try new things. So take the risk. If it falls flat on its face, that's in service of the next one that you make and the next one that the next artist makes, and that we are all getting to like be in community and learning from each other. I really I could go on this forever, but like the artists are the thing, man. We're,
Yeah.
we're the thing.
So beautifully said. This was amazing. And thank you for sharing that. Like that was
Yeah.
so eloquently put and like almost in what I
Thanks,
kind of
man.
said to you before we hit record. Like it was the thing I needed to hear today,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's just it is a crazy time and us
Yeah.
artists have to stick together and that's like
Yes.
this late stage capitalist element of this business is just it's over, and this is
Yeah.
what's going to
It's
carry.
over.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this
We're
is
the
a new
phoenix
industry
rising.
emerging,
Yes.
and what you're
Yes.
doing is so important, Jess. And thank you for
Well,
coming
and
on today.
likewise, like it's why I love what you're doing with this podcast so much, like making space for actors to talk about their journeys, to share about, like, it's always a winding road. Nobody arrived here by the same path that somebody else took. Again, because it's a creative industry and because it's so kind of wacky and crazy and things are changing so fast. So, like, thank you so much for creating this space for people to share their stories and to get to kind of work out in real time, like, how did we get here and where are we going? It's so
I mean,
beautiful.
that means everything. Obviously, if you see something, what other ways can people kind of support your future work? Like plug yourself right now.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Jess Jacobs X, and I have a website, www.jessjacobs.com, and you can sign up there for, like, I send out like tiny blasts every so often about some of the stuff that I'm doing. But Instagram is a pretty good place to follow along.
Amazing. I'll link that down here. And like sincerely, I mean this. Like on the next thing, come back and let's do part two.
Deal. I love it. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, you're the best. To be continued. Okay.
To be continued.